every single day. But all right, I'm ready. It's been a pain in the ass, but I think I'm ready to continue with episode 2 of Raised by Wolves. So get ready for The Good, the Bad, and the Wolves, episode 2. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
I need to find a more efficient system for this. Actually, I think the system's fine. The issue was that I just got bombarded with episodes and I wanted to do this in a very particular way. So if I only had to do, like, let's say 1 episode a week, 2 episodes a week would have been fine. I may have aimed a little bit too high. Doing 6 was maybe a bit too rough. So yesterday I decided, you know what? All right, I'll do this. I'll just do all the prep work, and basically it means gather all the images for all the stuff that I need to do, because that's the biggest pain in the butt. That's the thing that takes the longest, and I hate it because it's very tedious. It's annoying. You have to go and editing software, like image editing software. It's a huge pain in the butt, and apparently companies don't really want you doing that, so they don't really make it as comfortable as you would like. Anyway, what was I even complaining about? Yeah, so I did that yesterday. It took pretty much all fucking day. And today it's like, all right, doesn't matter. I did that prep work. Now I could just record. And it turns out that it takes me a lot of time to record and setting up other stuff. And so it's like, God damn it, I got to go to Mexico. I got an appointment at 5 down in Mexico. What the hell am I going to do? And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to try to bang at least one out here today, stream live, and the rest I might record and release throughout the weekend. So it's we'll see how that goes. It depends on how much time I have. It depends if I'm gonna stay down in Mexico or coming back. I don't know. It's a huge pain in the butt, but we're working it out, man. Every single day we're working it out. We're hopefully making this thing work. So before I get into it, let me just give you a quick reminder that any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram and at Super Dario World. Live streaming. I'm trying to live stream live every day on live stream live. Yeah. I mean, I guess I could pre-record and then live stream and you would never know, but yeah, still sounded stupid. Anyway, trying to live stream every day on YouTube and on Twitch at Super Dario World on both of them. I'm not sure how this is going to, if I pre-record it, probably it's just going to be on YouTube. I'm not sure. I'll work it out. I'll find a way to work it out. So if you only watch on Twitch, I don't really have that many following on Twitch, so it doesn't really matter. So podcast will be fine. YouTube, if you want to watch the images for all this stuff, it'll be loaded there. I'll just space it for a few hours so it's not too much content. Anyway, hopefully you cared about that, and if not, now you know how it works. Anyway, let's begin. So episode 2 of Riddley Scott's Raised by Wolves, the new HBO Max show, is out. This one I mean, you can get a free subscription for a week, 7 days free, and so you can watch it. I highly recommend it. I'm very much enjoying it, but I'm very much a sci-fi guy and a big Riddley Scott fan. So if you're either of those things, I recommend it. If not, maybe you'll enjoy me complaining about stuff. So let's begin with this for this episode with the new characters. So I already explained who the main characters are on the previous one. I'm not going to go back to that, and I'm just going to keep powering through from this point forward. If you would like to know how the show's been going, I'm doing a summary of it. So even if you can't watch the show, you can watch my summary and you can learn who the characters are. So let's begin. The new characters for this episode are the children, and let me make this bigger for you, that way you can actually see. And here we have their names. We got Hunter, who is the oldest of the group. This kid actually has a beard and a goatee, so I don't think he should count as a kid, but whatever. We got Paul, who is the small male here with a mouse. And we have 3 girls. Tempest, who I think is the oldest. Vita, who is a small Asian girl. And Holly, who is what is she? Like a teen Indian girl. So that's how you can distinguish the 3. Out of all of them, I guess the main thing that you need to know here, well, I'll explain it as we learn a little bit from them. So those are the 5 new characters that you need to learn here. And the other 2 characters that you may want to know who they are Caleb and Mary. Now, the reason why I didn't show really much of their faces right there is because it doesn't matter, and I will explain it in a few minutes. However, there are new characters, and they are named, so there you go. So let's begin with the summary of the episode. This episode begins. I'm pretty sure you guys are wondering, hey, well, last episode ended and Marcus saw the ship explode, and it's like, well, what the hell is he gonna do? And so Marcus, what he decides to do is he finds a rock, the rock where, he finds the hole where the ship crash landed for the androids, and he finds the rope that was tied there. So he tied himself up to that rope and decided to sleep next to the hole. Why? Because apparently the hole is releasing a little bit of heat, so that's how he's planning on not freezing to death. So solid strategy for Marcus there. And let's leave him there for a minute, and let's move on to the other side of the story, which is the androids. So the episode begins on Mother's side with a Mother getting a new pair of eyes. And the thing that we really don't understand is what the hell is happening here. Because if you guys remember at the end of the previous episode, she had her eyes covered. I thought it's because she didn't want the kids to see her creepy eyes. But apparently she took them off. She took out the eyes, and so she found a replacement. Where did she find a replacement? Well, it's from the android that she beat up at the end of the previous episode. And she also takes the opportunity to take his heart and reactivate Father. So now Father's back, which is cool because I actually liked Father. He was honestly a good actor, and he was a fun character. And so Mother proceeds to explain to Father what the hell happened, why she had to kill these dudes, and why she kind of had to exterminate humanity. So, and also that, hey, we now magically have 6 kids again. Weird. Father obviously does not believe everything she says, but he knows that he's not in a position to question her because she's clearly a more powerful android. So this also leads to a very heartwarming reunion between Father and Campion here, because Campion thought he was dead, and I was like, oh my god, Father's alive, this is great. And Mother decides to start re-educating all the Mithraic kids, basically explaining to them like, hey, no religion here, we're atheists. You guys are atheists now. So fun stuff there. And Mother also shares a little bit of how her powers work with Father. And the big thing here that we learned is that her eyes are basically the key to her powers. So if she takes off her eyes, it's basically she took off the key to the ignition to her powers. So that's why at the end of the previous episode, she took out her eyes. And now she's no longer just like a machine of war. She can actually be Mother, and she hit her eyes, and she showed Father exactly where she hit her eyes, basically in a hole in the ground, pretty much in the room, in the incubation room. So that's the things that we learned. In the meantime, Campion and Father are like, man, this bitch is crazy. She killed a whole bunch of people. She'll probably kill us too because she's malfunctioning. And they decide, you know what? Well, how about if Campion is like, hey, how about if we take the eyes, because Father told him about the eyes, and Campion is like, hey, how about if we take the eyes and destroy them? That way she won't be able to do that again. And Father's like, you know what? Leave it to me, kid. I'm the grown-up here, I guess. Do androids count as grown-ups? I don't know. But he says, leave it to me, kid. Next, we have Hunter, the kids who are basically trying to get information from Campion and trying to get them onto their side, because they're like, hell, at least he's human, and so maybe we can use him for stuff. And so we also learn a little bit about what the hell Mother is. And it turns out that Mother is a machine known as a necromancer. And it turns out that machine was actually created by the Mithraic, who's their people. So that's confusing. And basically, necromancers are machines of war, and they are super machines of war, and even Father, if he wanted to take her down, he would not be able to. And they're trying to basically to convince him, like, hey, kid, we're in fucking trouble. We need to get the fuck out of here. So that leads to, Campion kind of starting to explore their religion stuff. So that's fun stuff. Next, Mother takes a particular interest in Tempest. Tempest is this girl right here. She's probably the oldest of the girls. And she says basically, hey, you're staying in a separate room now. So she takes her to a separate room, and here's where we learn that Tempest is actually pregnant. So as we learned that Tempest is actually pregnant, we also learned that she was raped while she was in hypersleep, which is creepy as fuck. And she got raped and she got impregnated. So fun stuff for her. And okay, I did not mean fun stuff, but I'm being sarcastic. Hopefully you can understand that. Anyway, moving on. While this is going on, while they're having their bonding moment, and Mother's trying to like, hey, I'm gonna make sure that you have the baby, and which is actually interesting that the android really cares about life. Like she's really, really into the whole baby thing, and I'm gonna protect you and all this stuff. We just saw her annihilate humanity like an episode ago. So clearly, I mean, if it wasn't clear before, bitch be crazy. Anyway, moving on. Father is outside trying to work on some jokes when he hears some odd noises, and while he's trying to investigate, basically a weird golem-esque creature crawls behind him. You can see him here in the image. It's kind of weird, but don't worry, they show up again in another better image. So they're stalking around, and Father immediately is like, "Oh shit, we got enemies in the perimeter." So he goes. Mother also detects this. She tries to get her eyes. She realizes they're not there, so she goes straight to Father and like, "Did you take my fucking eyes? You fucking dick!" And Father's like, "No, I didn't. Oh my god, Campion." So he goes over to Campion and basically, "You little shit, we need the eyes. Give them back to us, otherwise we're fucking dead." And so he shakes them out. He shakes the eyes out of him. They give it back to Mother. In the meantime, these things start to attack the incubation. I'm gonna call it the incubation room. I know that's not it. Should call it like an igloo or something. I don't know. The giant doghouse. And so they attack the giant doghouse where Tempest is. And so she does the smart thing and runs the hell away from cover. She runs out of there. These things start chasing it. Fortunately, Mother arrives just in time and blows that thing the fuck up with her special scream attack thing that still doesn't make much sense to me. Moving on, the Mother takes her eyes out again so that she stops being a machine of war, and she thanks Father for, "Thank you for not taking my eyes." So, you know, they got their little bonding moment, and that's pretty much the story on that side. Let's move on to the actual fun story of this episode, because that one, if you noticed, not a lot happened. But we got a flashback. So in this flashback, a lot of interesting stuff happened, and we learned a lot of, at least I think, interesting stuff. And this flashback takes us to Boston 2145. So 200, 145. So we get to see right there, smack dab in the middle of the war, and here is where we meet Caleb and Mary. Now, they're moving around to a city that's pretty much completely destroyed. And while they're running around kind of shooting at stuff, we learn that these two are not actually Mithraic. We learned that they're atheist soldiers. We learned this because there was a dude praying and they shot him immediately, so that's always fun. And in the process of, you know, their adventure throughout the city, they rescue an android that was set on fire, but it's clearly a medical android. As they're helping the android out, they realize that, hey, this android just made he was just checking out, doing like a medical checkup on a family, on a couple that is going to be a part of the Ark. Well, you know, the human Ark that's leaving Earth, and so everybody who's on that Ark is pretty much the only ones who are going to be left alive. And so they have the complete information of what these people, what they look like, and, you know, their records and stuff like that. Turns out the family is the family of a Dr. Marcus Orsus. I don't know what the hell. It says doctor there, but apparently it's Marcus, which is our friend Marcus that we learned from before. And here's where we learned that this android can perform plastic surgery and basically changes our friend Caleb's face here and her companion Mary's face as well. After they take off the bandages a little while later, we don't know how long this actually takes, and it turns out that here we have our friend Marcus again. So what happens when you take somebody's face? Well, you immediately have to hunt them down, find them, and kill them. So basically that's what they did. They found the real Caleb and Mary found the real Marcus and his wife, and they shot him dead. So, by the way, Marcus's wife is named Sue. The only reason I know that is because I looked up in IMDb. But yeah, so they killed him. Straight up, after they kill him, and so their plan is to basically take over their lives. So, after they kill these two people, they go to where the Ark is being loaded, and they kind of find out that they have a kid, and their kid's name is Paul. You know, Paul, the kid who is one of the survivors there. He's actually hanging out here with Hunter, if you look closely. But anyway, one of the kids that was taken by Mother is Paul. And so they take Paul, and they're like, all right, we're going to raise you now. Well, they don't really say that specifically, but that's how Paul ends up being with them. Anyway, moving on. That brings us back to Marcus, Caleb, and for the purposes of not getting, like a brain aneurysm or a migraine, I'm just gonna call Caleb Marcus from now on, and I'm gonna call Mary Sue, which is a terrible choice of names there, but whatever. I'm just gonna call him that, so it's not as confusing. So, fake Marcus, Caleb Marcus, I'm just gonna call him Marcus, all right? Because that's who he's pretending to be from now on. Anyway. So Marcus is sleeping next to his rock when he gets attacked by the weird golem reptile dog creatures. And fortunately, his plan of having a rope worked because he just kind of like threw himself over the cliff and, into the hole, and the rope saves his life. And as he's hanging there, a couple, like a squad of soldiers find them, and they pick him up and they take him back to wherever the rest of the survivors are. So that's the episode. That's a summary of what happened in this previous episode. And now let's break it down in The Good, the Bad, and the Wolves. All right, it actually played this time. It actually played. I'm happy. I'm happy about that. I was worried there for a sec. Let me just switch this out for a little quick. Yeah. So for those of you who've never listened to this before, The Good, the Bad, and the Wolves is where I break down the things that I liked about the episode, the things that I thought were bad about the episodes, and in the Wolves, I give you a fun fact about something related to this episode, the characters, or sci-fi in general. So let's begin. Let's begin with, as always, the good. So let's actually get back here. There you go. The good. I love all the sci-fi elements of this when you get to see how people expect the future to be. I like seeing future tech. So the whole operation where they were doing the plastic surgery, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed seeing the machines, the type of wrapping that they used. If I have to guess, I think it's like a synthetic algae or something like that. Also, I've heard a lot of stuff about a particular fish skin that's really good for burn victims, so it could be a synthetic version of that. I don't know, but it was fun to watch. Like I said, I love watching all the little gadgets about how current humans imagine the future is going to look like. So I enjoyed watching that. Here we go. It's a little bit more. So the special effects were fantastic for that. The makeup people did a really great job. I also love the costumes, like the set design and everything. I love it. I love how these two. Well, first, how they made them look kind of like medieval, like imagine like sci-fi medieval warriors. That's kind of like sci-fi Templars are the other guys. These guys are like just normal soldiers, but sci-fi with sci-fi elements to it. That I just really enjoyed it. I like the whole look overall, and find it really enjoyable. And whoa, this is not supposed to be here. Let me move this around a little bit. Oh yeah, and I also really, really liked that now the show has a completely different meaning. So, well, at least the show's title. Originally, you hear Raised by Wolves. You hear a TV show about about androids raising humans, and you're like, oh well, okay, that makes perfect sense. Raised by wolves, because they're not being raised by humans. They're being raised by something else. However, the show has now taken on a different meaning because here we have these two, Marcus and Caleb, pretending to be we have these two, Caleb and Mary, pretending to be Marcus and Sue. So, and they're atheists. They're atheists who are pretending to be Mithraic in order to survive. So they are wolves in sheep's clothing, and they took over the kid of somebody else. So they are wolves in sheep's clothing raising an orphan boy. So that I particularly enjoy that. I like that. I like when writers are clever that way, and I'm a sucker for a good title that has a meaning in a lot of levels. So I particularly enjoyed that. I also like how they're developing this whole world in general. Like I talked about this last episode. I really wanted to understand how the fuck the world would lead to a religious war. I couldn't understand it, and I'm beginning to understand it a little bit more, and at the same time, it's a little bit more confusing. So one of the things that we learn here is that their god, the god that they praise, is Sol. Now, this is very interesting to me because for those of you who are Spanish speakers, you know that Sol is what is in Spanish means sun. right? Sol, sun. That's pretty much the same thing. So the name of our star, the star that we revolve around, is the name of that star is Sol. So their god is the sun. These people, the Mithraic, are basically religion of Apollo. Now, I guess you could make the argument that what they worship is the light, but I mean, the name of their god is literally the name of our star. Ironically, it's the star that they're leaving. So I find that interesting. I like how it's very confusing now that the atheists are the ones who these dudes are the ones that are supposed to be kind of like, I don't know. I imagine them being kind of a little bit. I'm trying to find the right word here. It's gonna take me a second because you ever have that moment where you're like, I know exactly what I want to say, but I can't find the right word to say it. But it kind of changes the impression of that I had for this particular show. And for example, I thought that the atheists would be like the more tech savvy people, right? The more advanced. But it turns out that it's actually the Mithraic, the one that control that stuff. And also, we learned that the Mithraic. Here's the thing. I believe I forgot to mention this, but the Mithraic, via Hunter, we learned that the Mithraic actually like using androids for a lot of stuff because that way they keeps their bodies pure. So the Mithraic have a really fucked up sense of morality because if we send androids to fight and kill people, then we're cool. We're clean. Our hands are clean. We're not doing anything wrong. I mean, they do have soldiers and stuff, but they still like, I really didn't do anything. My soul's still pure. However, I mean, the fucked up thing there is that you killed somebody, right? So it's a very, let's say, backward sense of morality. So, and that kind of goes hand in hand with their costumes. Like their costumes, like I said, I've described them this way several times already, but it's like medieval sci-fi. That's kind of what their clothing looks like, or at least their soldiers' uniforms. They look like Templar warriors, and so it's funny. Like humanity's going backwards in a way. Might be more advanced in technology, but morally morally we're going backwards, and that is reflected in our clothing, or at least in their clothing. So I enjoy all that stuff. Like I said, I like when there's levels to things, and this is one that I particularly enjoyed. So that's all good stuff. Now let's move on to the bad. So in the bad, one thing that still drives me nuts is that I still don't understand Mother's Scream and how it works. Because a new wrench has been thrown. Like last episode, I tried to maybe find a little bit of logic in what the hell it was and how it worked. This thing kind of just threw everything out the water because the way that she exploded let's say the Golem dog thing made really no sense to me. Like the thing was right on top of Tempest. I mean, right on, like this, you can see right here is the thing's arm. So that thing was right on top of her. And Mother was able to hit it like with such precision and with the force. I mean, it made it explode. Maybe it's because it's weak physically. I don't know. But the other humans that she attacked on Earth, they merely cooked, and I thought that maybe it was a space thing that the other ones blew up, and maybe it's because she hit him with more intensity. But here it's like right next to her, and so I don't understand it. I still don't understand it. It gives me headaches, so I don't like that because I don't like having headaches. Another thing that I didn't really like is the way that they powered her down. Now I complained about this in the previous episode that they made her way too powerful, and I always thought they were going to find some kind of bullshit to power her down or to make her weaker. I thought the logical thing to me is that she used too much energy and she either needs to recharge or she needs to find new elements to replenish basically her arsenal and stuff like that. But what they did instead is basically, we took off her key. So there's a key to her powers, and it's her eyes. So I guess there's ways you can play around with that, but to me it just seems stupid. Like it's a very stupid way to power down somebody. So basically all you have to do to beat her is go for her eyes. So I don't like that. It's one of the things that a lot of people complain about Superman. Like, he has such an obvious weakness. That's why I think it's more fun when Superman has to deal with magical beings, because Superman is weak to magic, so magic attacks can hurt him, so that makes it more interesting. When it's Kryptonite, it's just like, I'm weak. So I did not enjoy that. And another thing that kind of bugged me is how easily the real Marcus just kind of gave up. He was like, all right, well, kill me. Now, this dude's supposed to be a soldier. And literally, his life is on the line and his wife's life's on the line. And basically, he's like, well, we're dead. So these two dudes show up. First off, they walk in like it's their own fucking house. There's no security. There's no anything that would give them some kind of protection. They just walk into the fucking house and kill them. Like, they don't even try to hide. They don't even try to run. They don't try anything. So that annoys me, because I get it. They did it for time, and also so that you're like, yeah, don't worry about this guy. He really doesn't matter because he's the fake one. Well, he's the real one, but he's now dead, so it doesn't really matter. I understand that part of it. It just bugs me. Like, I would have actually enjoyed to see a fight there. It would have been a lot more fun. That you could have seen, like, oh, so this is how capable this guy was. So this is now what he kind of has to live up to. But, you know, they don't ask me about these things. They're probably short on time, and I guess they wanted to spend their money somewhere else. So what can you do? Next, let's move on to the wolves. And here we are going to tackle a very interesting question, and a topic that a lot of people don't like to think about when it comes to sci-fi, apocalyptic future type of deals. And that is the topic of how many humans it would take for humanity to survive. Now, the plan for the atheists here was, we're going to send 2 androids to raise 6 kids, and that way it'll populate the planet. Now, it is possible that the atheists send multiple ships to the planet, and so there's multiple groups of 6 kids being raised by androids. It's possible. We don't have confirmation of that yet. And that's the only way this plan makes sense, because there's a thing known as minimum viable population. Let me switch that out so you can read it here. Minimum viable population. What this means, and I'll read you the exact well, not the exact definition, but the dumbed down version of it, is actually, I'll explain it. So there is a certain amount of humans that are needed in order for us to have enough genetic diversity in order for the species to survive. Now, one thing that's very important for humans and actually all species is genetic diversity, because every single human being, every single being out there has genetic defects, has genetic mutations, and if you keep yourself within the same gene pool, those things will get exacerbated, and the population will basically implode. Well, you'll basically get a whole bunch of retards out there, pretty much, and that's what happens when you inbreed. That's what happens. That's why it's one considered maybe the greatest sin in nature, not morally. Nature itself is against inbreeding. That's why, you can't marry your sister, you can't marry your cousin, because it's really bad genetically. So it's the minimum viable population is the minimum number of humans that need to survive, or in any species that needs to survive, in order for humanity or in order for that species to enable to procreate and not have a whole bunch of genetic defects that would actually lead to their extinction. Now, there's 2 numbers here that matter. And there's a thing called let me see, what is it? The 5,500 rule. And this rule is the one that I'm going to read you the exact definition. That way you don't have to take it from me. But this is the dumbed down explanation for it. It's not the definition. Basically, you need 50 breeding individuals to avoid inbreeding depression, and 500 in order to adapt. So basically, to stop inbreeding, you need at least 50, and 500 so you have adaptation to the environment and stuff like that, because you also need to adapt to the environment. You need to evolve. So in order to have evolution, you need 500 at least. In order to avoid just inbreeding defects, you need at least 50. However, it has been upped to 5,000 the scientists have upped that to 500 to 5,000 to account for the random losses of genes that are passed down from generation to generation. So basically, to avoid, because nature is random, and so in order to account for that, they upped it. So that means that in order for humans to colonize a planet, you need at least 5,000, at least, because it's a new planet. You need you need at least 5,000 viable humans, and humans that can actually reproduce, survive all the way to adulthood and keep reproducing, at least 5,000, so that they can adapt and evolve to that particular planet. So the plan that both factions had actually makes no sense, because I think that the Ark, well, they don't really say how many people are there in the Ark, and they probably have like a whole bunch of embryos and stuff like that. So you know what? Fine. The Ark is fine. The Ark was actually a reasonable idea. What the atheists were doing mathematically made no sense. There was no way they were going to find minimum viable population with just 6 kids. And just look at it this way. Right here in this particular group, or with the original group, with the Gen 1, these are Gen 2, but the Gen 1, they would have had 3 boys, 3 girls. That means that if every single boy reproduced at least once with every single girl, there would be at least 9 different genetic variables there. And from there, you could probably find a few more. You could probably make a few groups where there wouldn't be genetic siblings. And then you reach a point where you're like, oh shit, we're at least 2 generations, maybe just one, or like one. What's it called? It's not generation. It's like one family apart from being related, and it just becomes a whole freaking mess. So, bad idea. And unless, like I said, unless the atheists sent about, and like I said, they need to be 5,000. So they needed, and they only have 5, and they had 6 kids per pod here, so they needed to send like at least 1,000 of these. Well, less than 1,000, but I mean, assuming the one kid dies for everyone, unless they send 1,000 of these things, they would not reach minimum viable population, which means that every single kid that they sent to that planet is eventually going to die for no freaking reason. Or because humanity won't be able to colonize it. So, there you go. That was the fun fact for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That was the good, the bad, and the wolves. That was the breakdown of episode 2. I may still haven't. I don't think I'll have enough time to break down episode 3. We'll see. I'll probably do it on Sunday. Who knows? As always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram and at Super Dario World. I keep forgetting. I keep messing that one up. Also, like I said, I'm trying to live stream every single one of these, so maybe I can do it on Sunday, because I already have all the prep work done. I'm just missing time, but I'll try to aim for Sunday. Yes, there's no way I can do it tomorrow, but yeah, try to aim for Sunday. I'll also continue with The Voice, and maybe, hopefully, I'll be caught up with everything on Monday. We'll see. Anyway, if you want to do live streams, or if you just want to see the previous videos I've done, you can do that on YouTube at Super Dario World and on Twitch at Super Dario World. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.